Hey there, and welcome back to another video. As you know, here on my channel, my goal is to help you out as much as possible, whether that's with saxophone-specific playing, jazz improvisation, or really anything related to playing, performing, and learning music. One comment I get a lot, either in comments or even in emails that you send me is, hey, this video is really great, but I wish you would go a little deeper, or, hey, this video was great, but I wish you would break it down a little more. And I got a couple comments recently that specifically said, hey, it'd be really cool if you did like one topic in multiple levels or one song in multiple levels. So what I'm gonna do is start a new series here where I call it 3 levels of. And I might expand it out to 4 or 5 levels maybe down the road, but for right now it's gonna be 3 levels of playing something, playing a tune. And the point of this is gonna be, I'm gonna show you how to effectively play through a specific tune in this case, but 3 different levels of increasing difficulty. And I'm gonna start out with the song that I think everybody should start improvising over, or a set of chord changes everybody should begin improvising over, and that is a 12-bar blues. Before I dive into anything, explain anything, or play anything, there is a PDF worksheet that I made specifically for this video. I'm gonna be going through that and put it on the screen here in a second, but I want you to have it. I wrote it out in C instruments, E flat instruments, B flat, and bass clef. It's all under one PDF worksheet, and I'll show you that in a second. And you can get it completely free. The only thing you need to do is click the link at the top of the description down below, or just go directly to davepollack.com/3levelsblues. 3, the number 3, levels blues. I really want you to download that PDF because yes, I'm going to be going through it a bit here in the video, but I want you to have it so you can practice it and you can see some of the things that I wrote out and you can just have it for yourself when you practice. All right, without any further ado, I'm now going to jump inside that PDF worksheet. All right, we're now inside of the PDF as you see. And if you play an instrument that's not a concert pitched instrument, so you're playing alto sax, tenor sax, something like that, and you download this and you see C instruments, don't freak out. All you gotta do is scroll down a bit, okay? Because the first page is C instruments, second page E flat instruments, third page is B flat, and then fourth page is bass clef. So that covers everybody unless you're playing, French horn or something like that. If you need a specific sheet for that, email me or comment. I'll make it for you. So I'm actually going to dive into the E flat instrument sheet. I know not all of you are playing an E flat instrument, but I do demonstrate these things on alto, so I want it to make sense. But obviously everything I wrote out here is transposed for all the keys. So this 3-level thing, by the way, I just have to say this up front, is not a definitive guide, but I think it's a good way to break down playing something in a smaller, more manageable chunk so you can then understand it and learn it. And even if you feel like you're more advanced, I think you can still learn things from this video if you go through all the steps, so don't just jump ahead. But I will put timestamps right here for each of the levels. Level 1 I'm about to get into, and then there's gonna be level 2 and level 3. So if you wanna just skip to them, you can, but I recommend watching all of them. So, in any song when we want to play, and I'm going to get into this a little differently with some other songs, but you want to find main key centers. And I think when improvising, that's going to be the main thing you're going to focus on harmonically. Once again, I'm going to preface everything by saying this is not about the non-note musical elements. I have a whole bunch of videos and topics and masterclasses on non-note musical elements, dynamics, phrasing, interaction, intonation, all those different elements that go into creating solos that aren't harmony related. They're not note related. I'm not getting into them here. I have a whole bunch of resources. There's 2 playlists in the description below. One is just for saxophone specific stuff, but one is specifically for jazz improvisation. There's a bunch of videos there of different topics. So if you're asking, hey, this is great for notes, but how do you play with good phrasing? There's a video on that. Yeah, this is great, but how do I add outside colors and stuff? There's a video on that. This is great, but how do I add shapes and rhythms? You get it. Go there. There's a lot of that. This specific video though, I'm going to be talking about the 3 levels of playing through a song, specifically when talking about chord changes and how to approach the song, because that's the question I get asked the most. People get confused with chords, and I ask people, what's their hardest thing when learning music? And they say the chords move too fast, or I'm thinking about voice leading, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that, and it's just confusing. So I'm going to break it down. So now back to this. So level 1, in this song, to find an overall key center or main key centers. For blues, it's pretty simple because you can just play the blues scale throughout. Now, a lot of people ask this. They say, okay, if it says, G7, I play G blues. And then when I play C7, do I play a C blues? Then when I play D, no, whatever key the blues is in, okay? So in this case, it's a concert B flat blues, which is G7 down here. I know I'm looking at level 2, but it's G7 is the first chord of the blues. It's a G blues for alto, concert B flat blues. So what you're going to do is play that blues scale of the key of the 1. And you can use that all the way throughout. But what about the chord changes? Won't some of the notes not work? Yes, some of the notes aren't going to be perfect. But overall, you can make a great solo and make a really good sounding solo that's fun to play. It has good interaction as long as you're using all those non-note musical elements. I always talk about having reference recordings, listening. Once again, check that playlist in the description below. I go over all that stuff. But if you have good non-note musical elements, the first step here in the first level of playing a blues is using the blues scale of the 1 throughout. First, here's what the blues scale sounds like, the notes of the blues scale. All right, those are just the notes as I wrote out here. Now I'm actually going to improvise a solo for a couple choruses using only the notes of the blues scale. So everything you're going to hear is part of that blues scale. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different notes. Yes, I go above and below like octave displacement, but I'm only using the notes of the blues scale. Here's what you can do when you just use those notes. Check it out. All right, so if you're at the beginning stages of improvising specifically over a blues and you're getting confused with chord tones, all this other stuff, I would say just stick to the blues scale. Yes, there's going to be further things that we're about to do, but harmonically, if you just use the blues scale, but you add those good non-note musical elements, phrasing, the rhythms, the interaction if you're playing with a real band, dynamics, articulation, all those different elements are going to create a good solo in whatever tempo and key you're playing in. But then the notes specifically, you can just play the blues scale. It'll work. I promise you. Okay. So now just say you can do that. You can play a pretty solid solo with a blues scale. What's the next step? Well, I would say it's going to be chord tones. I'm not going to go through my entire chord tone learning process here. Once again, there's videos of that in the improvisation playlist down below. Specifically, when I talk about the best way to learn chord changes, I would definitely check that video out because I go through my process of play one chord tone per chord. So in that process, you would literally play the root of each chord. Then the second chorus, you might play the third of every chord. Third chorus, you'd play the fifth of every chord. And then the fourth chorus, you'd play the seventh of every chord. That way you get really comfortable with every single chord tone of every single chord, and then you can go forward. And then the final step in that process is what I'm going to do right now, which is play all four chord tones over every single chord. Why is this important? Why is this kind of the next step? Well, understanding all the different chord tones of every chord is the basis of the harmony. Yes, it's good to know a scale that goes through that, but literally when it says G7, that means something specific. That means the notes G, B, D, F. Sure, we can go further and say, well, you can use a diminished scale and a sharp 11 and a substitute. The chord literally 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Okay, so for all these chords, we're going to do this. Can you do inversions? Sure, you can do that, but here I'm doing everything in root position because we're just taking it step by step. So now what I'm going to do is play all of those chord tones exactly how they're written here in time. So you notice that when it's a measure of one chord, I can play 4 quarter notes, but when there's 2 chords per measure, like here in measure 4, there's 2 chords per measure, so I have to play eighth notes over each chord. It's a little faster, so we're going to keep the tempo nice and slow, but here's what it sounds like when I play every chord tone in root position. All right, so those were all the chord tones in root position. Now I'm going to improvise a solo over a couple courses of the blues, but I'm only going to use chord tones over each chord. I'm not going to use passing tones. I'm not going to use chromaticism unless it's chromatic from one chord to the next, as long as the chord tones are there. But I'm not actually going to be adding any other notes outside of the notes that are right here. This could be kind of tricky, actually, because as you get, more comfortable improvising, your fingers are going to lead themselves chromatically. You're going to play more linearly. But here, it's a good idea to just force yourself to play only chord tones. If you could do that, then going to step 3 is going to be so much better for you. So check it out as I play a chord tone solo. All right, if you can improvise a chord tone solo and keep the form, not get lost, play some good non-note musical elements, now you're ready to take on the next step. Before we talk about step 3, this isn't the end of soloing. There are a lot of things that I have taught and will be teaching that are even beyond level 3, but that's going to be very specific things like adding specific color over notes, adding specific chord substitutions. I'm not getting into that here. I'm just talking about these main 3 levels. Once again, I have a whole bunch of videos about improvisation if you want to go even further than this in that playlist down below. I know I keep pitching that, but it's free. It's completely free to you. And a lot of the questions that I know you're going to give me are in those videos in the playlist. So definitely check those out. For level 3, we have voice leading. So what does that basically mean? Well, now we're combining the chord tones with those non-note musical elements, but now we're adding other notes in. What notes are we adding in? Well, I'm not going into depth in my voice leading process. I do have a free masterclass on that, by the way, that you can get in the description down below as well. It's just davepollack.com/free masterclass, where I go into my entire 6-step voice leading process. I talk about neighbor tones and enclosures, chromatic, diatonic, all that stuff. I give sample lines, PDFs. It's really cool, but that's a separate thing that's not on YouTube, but it is still free for you if you want to check it out. But in that, I talk about the entire process of how to get from chord tones to this voice leading thing. But basically here, I wrote out an etude for you. I wrote a 12-bar blues etude, which kind of highlights some of the chord tones, but also some chromaticism. So what I'm going to do is actually play it for you, then I'm going to analyze it, then I'm going to just play a solo afterwards, thinking about voice leading, thinking about chord tones, but just completely improvising. So first, I'm going to play this etude, and then we're going to come back and I'll analyze it for you. All right, so that was the etude. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, if you have the PDF, you can have it yourself. So like I said, I'm focusing on voice leading. So voice leading basically means leading from one chord to the other. I'm a big proponent of voice leading, strong voice leading, landing on good chord tones, leading into chord tones, and playing what I call horizontally. And other people do too, not just me. But horizontal playing is you're thinking about getting from one chord through into the next chord, through into the next chord, versus playing just over this chord and over this chord. I hear it all the time when people improvise. They play over G7, and then they play over C7, and then over G7, but there's no connection. There's no bridge between them. I always say that jazz happens at the bar line. So, what I mean by that is basically in between the chords. How are you transitioning? So I'm going to analyze this little etude for you now. So started right there on the third. Third is going to be my favorite chord tone always to land on. I feel like it's the strongest, it's the most stable, and it gives the most chord quality. Let me move that out of the way a little bit. So start on the third, and I basically go third, then a half step below, then back to the third. Da-da-da. And then I jump up, ba-da-da-da-da, This is literally the chord tones right here from D down to F, 5, 3, 1, flat 7. That's literally G7 chord. But what I'm thinking of is, here's the voice leading. The flat 7 here, the F, leads to the third here. Flat 7 to 3, because the chord moves by fourth. Anytime you have a 2-5-1, a 5-1, or a 1-4, you're always going to have 7s moving to thirds, thirds moving to 7s. It works out really well. So there's the voice leading. So 7 to third, then I play 3-5, flat 7, just chord tones here. But then look, I kind of go to the 5, then diatonically, but then chromatically, A sharp, bam. So it's 2 lower neighbors. If you watch that free masterclass, you know I talk about 2 chromatic lower neighbors. That's what that is. But then I keep chromatically going up, da da do di da. So it's like chromatically up to the C sharp, but then the C sharp up to E, landing on the note D on the other big beat of the measure. Big beats of the measure are going to be 1 and 3. Even though, yes, jazz, we feel 2 and 4. Harmonically, the big beats are 1 and 3. So lower, upper neighbor, enclosure, lower, upper enclosure into D. Da, da, da. So I basically go 1, then 7, natural 7, chromatically to flat 7, because that F works here, and it also is the third of D minor. So because I put a rest after it, your ear is going to hear that into the next measure. So it's going to be like I'm playing the third here. So then I play the 5, and then this is a cool sound. I love using flat 13. I know I'm not getting into outside stuff here, but it's a cool little sound. So it's E to E flat to D. That's kind of the chromatic voice leading line in my head. Bo-be-da-doo-dee. Or I'm kind of doing like upper, lower, enclosure, but kind of a wide open enclosure. But that flat 13 to the third there is a really common one that I like to play over dominant chords. So then now we're here in the second line in C7. The chord tones, 1, 5, flat 7, 5. Nothing crazy there. But what I do is it's a little motif. Bop, boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop. So I connected the line. It's not just vertical, even though I'm just playing chord tones here. Chord tones here, this is the 1. That's just a C sharp 7, by the way. That's a mistake. I will fix that for when you actually download it. I didn't notice that until just now. So I will fix that. Don't worry. So if everybody's like, why is it? I'll fix it. C sharp, B flat up to the third here, up to the 1. And then this is basically playing the 5 here. I play the 1 chromatically once again, because there's a rest here. Whatever you play on the end of 4 is going to carry over, even if you don't actually play like a tie. It'll carry through. So in my mind, I'm just anticipating the G7. Then I just kind of play up a step. Then ba-ba-ba-da. So that's the flat 5, and then this is the root here. But really, it's a chromatic like F down to E. Then here's a little line that I use. This is diatonic A minor 7. I'm thinking G major, though, because I'm in the key of G major here. Sorry, my singing is terrible. But here's this line. Using the altered scale. Altered scale right here. Just starting with a little skip up to it. But you got your, over D7, you have sharp 5. It's written as flat 13. Sharp 5, flat 5. Your third, your sharp 9, written as flat 3, flat 9. Once again, if this is too complicated, don't worry about it, but I'm just letting you know what I'm playing. Just a D altered scale coming down. And then landing on the third, though. Look, C to B, 7 to 3, once again. And then 3, 5, flat 7, but that's actually the flat 9 of E7. That's a common alteration there. It's the root here. E is the root of E, but it's also the 5 of A. So once again, I'm thinking about connection. Is there a common tone I can use? Yes, E is a common tone from E7 and A minor 7. But more importantly, I'm thinking about bop, bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da. It's this little motif. Bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da, flat 9. So it's like the 1 or the 5 here, but this is the flat 9 here. E to E flat 9 over D7. I know that was a super quick overview, but for those of you who want to go a little further, there's that. But you don't have to get even that kind of complex with it, with all the chromaticism. If you want to just think diatonic voice leading, that works well as well. I just wanted to show you those multiple levels to really separate all 3 of them. So now there's the etude. I wrote that out. I'm not saying you have to write out an etude. I just wanted to give you something that I can analyze for you and you can practice if you want. But now what I'm going to do is just improvise over a couple choruses. I'm going to be thinking about chord tones. I'm thinking about blues. I'm thinking about voice leading. But what I'm going to be doing is just doing an open, free improvisation. Not free improv as in like play random stuff. I still have the parameters of the blues, but I'm not specifically playing any one harmonic idea or rhythmic idea. Check it out. All right, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of a blues and talking about the 3 levels of improvising over it. Like I said a million times in this video, if there are other questions you have specifically about certain concepts, go check that playlist down in the description below because I'm sure I answered most of them. But if I didn't, definitely ask me in the comments below. This is not to say I don't want your questions. I just know that a lot of the questions you ask are answered in previous videos, and sometimes I forget exactly which video they are because I've done so many, but I've been compiling all of the saxophone lessons and improvisation lessons in this playlist, so definitely go check them out. Also, be sure to download the PDF worksheet that goes along with this. Yes, I'll have the right chords in there this time. You have to just go to davepollack.com/3levelsblues. Once again, the number 3 levels blues. I'll also put that link down in the description below. One more thing too, if you want to go further and really dive into voice leading, I have a completely free masterclass all about melodic playing based on my 6-step voice leading process. You go to davepollack.com/free masterclass, or once again, go down to the description. That'll be the second link down there. You can check that out, download it for free, watch it whenever you want, have the PDFs for life, and you'll be a much better, much more melodic and lyrical improviser. If there are other topics you want to see me cover here on the YouTube channel, please let me know. I'm here to help you. They could be jazz improvisation, saxophone specific, or anything else. Also, if there are some specific songs you'd like to see me do for this 3 levels series, please let me know because I have a bunch in mind. But if there's some specific songs you want to hear, I want to do them for you. Thanks so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.